Hi, Mark.
Hello, Paul.
You
How are you
okay?
doing? I'm doing good, thanks. Yeah, you?
Yeah, very good. You've been doing lots of these old Skype chats then, I mean?
Yeah. I spend my life in front of a screen now. Do you know what? When we were at school, our kids or our parents used to say, if you spend too much time watching the telly, you get square eyes. I
Yeah.
think there's no better better time in our lives where we're definitely going to come out of this with some sort of square eyes syndrome, I think.
I had that yesterday when I'd sat down for too long and I got up to put the kettle on and like my joints had seized up and I'd like cramp. I was like, oh, I was like,
Yeah.
not good.
Yeah,
But
there's going to be the good work for chiropractors after this, I'm sure, because people have got terrible posture, they've got terrible chairs that they're probably sitting in,
yeah,
and when they open up, there'll be like a queue out the door, thinking I've got to sort my back and my neck out.
we definitely sort of learned the value of people. And I was mentioning it to Natty, the haircuts as well that people do in the home haircut. There's a lot of things that need fixing out there. So,
Yes.
so I've known you a couple of years now, but the people that don't know you, if you'd like to sort of mention, your kind of path or what you do, who you help, that'd be great.
Okay, so I'm Mark Terrell. My business is we rebranded it a while ago called the Reluctant Leader, which I think most people probably get as soon as I say it. They understand what happens. So I help business owners or people that in their career have got to a point where they need to look after their team, and what happens generally is that they don't really know what that means. They try their best, which is fine, and that's what I did. I tried my best and I did all right. But we wing it and wonder why actually we don't really enjoy it eventually. And it can eventually lead us to become disillusioned. So I teach the mindset, process, and skills that you need to lead a team. And once you know what those three things are, then you can really be effective. You can leave a lasting legacy. And most importantly, you can learn to enjoy your role, and that is what tends to be the opposite to what happens. Most people get to that point where they're trying to manage a team, they get frustrated, don't really know what they're doing, and ultimately that leads to, leaving the business or get disillusioned with the job.
Yeah, so I say it must be quite hard for those people that have not had those experience or training. It kind of gets dumped on you, particularly if it's handed, like say, a business is handed down, and you kind of say
Mm.
left with no sort of manual or skill set, or so you work with them to kind of redirect that and teach them on.
Where I start firstly is, as you know, I use a lot. I use a tool called Motivational Maps. The reason why I use that product is because I just wish I knew more about what motivated me back in the day when I was running my family retail business. I needed to be really in tune with what motivated me, and I wasn't. And that led me to make bad decisions. It led me to take on responsibilities that I didn't really want, and then also to lose the parts of the business that I really enjoyed. I lost, and so I didn't get the energy from those things that I needed. So motivation is really important for everybody at work. You've got to understand what is it that you actually get energy from, because that's what motivation is, the energy that you need to perform at your best. And also to avoid too much of the things that don't motivate you, so the things that drain you of that energy. So if you get the balance wrong, then you can really get into a place where you're really unhappy. And if you've got um, all the stuff that's draining you of energy all the time, and you're basically really having trouble getting out of bed to go to work, because that's the key thing. How easy is it to get out of bed to go to work in the morning? And if it's a real, I don't really want to go today, that's a key indication that those key motivations are not being met. So that's tends to be where I start, because that's where most things go wrong, is that you give up those things that you actually get motivated by, and then take on things that don't motivate you.
Right, I guess I say if you're managing a team or a sub
Mm.
team or a bigger team,
Yeah.
and you don't have a clue what's going to get the best out of those people, or I guess you're going to get a bit of a clash if someone what kind of motivators are there, and how do they kind of work within a workplace dynamic of those people?
Yeah, so what I sort of started there, when you're leading a team, first of all, you've got to understand yourself, understand the way you like to do things and the way and why you do things. So once you've got that, you can feel that, okay, I now understand myself better than I did before. And then when you start thinking about who you're leading, then you can start thinking about, well, what motivates them and what's my role? And to get the best out of them, I've got to play my part. I've got to do what they want from me. So let's go through some of the motivators. Some people might be motivated by security. Okay, something that might be a strong motivator. So in that instance, if you're leading the team, you need to make sure that you are keeping them informed, give them all the information they need, so they feel that they're getting the information that they need, so they feel secure. So in a situation we're in at the moment, someone that's motivated by security, and my other half is, it's about keeping them informed, making sure that they've got the information, and they don't feel as if something's being held back. And sometimes they even want to know the bad news as well, because if they feel you're not giving them all the information, they'll feel that that you're sort of almost trying to hoodwink them. So that's one example, someone that's motivated by security. Or say if someone is motivated by freedom, so if that's one of their key motivators, in that instance, what you want to do is make sure that they have as much control over the way they do things as possible. So you're not overly managing them. So if you've got something that you want to happen, rather than tell them how to do it, just tell them what the outcome is, and they will get on with it and do it their way. As long as they've got control in the way they do it, then they're generally motivated. So that's a couple of the motivators out of the 9, where you can adjust the way you behave to each individual.
Sure, and I guess if you've got that team environment, and I mean, what happens if you've got too many similar, or does it help in terms of recruitment, finding somebody that would fit that particular role? That you look for the kind of the right kind of person that's motivated in the right way. I guess it comes into sort of culture and style of your business.
I've just come off another call actually with somebody that works in a creative business, and we talked about what tends to happen, and you'll relate to this because you're a creative, obviously, is that when you get creatives come together, they're full of ideas. They bring ideas, and they're brilliant. The brainstorming sessions, they're fantastic because they've got all these ideas, and it's all going around. The energy in the room's fantastic. But the trouble with that sort of people that are motivated by this is the creator motivator, is that they go out of the room and then nothing really happens. They don't really stick at it. And then what you find is when you're working with a team like that, is the next meeting you have, you end up just, first of all, they say that they haven't done any of the stuff that they talked about.
Yeah.
But then what they've done is they brought some new new ideas to the table. So you've got this expand. So you've got this expanding ideas pool. Which nothing ever sort of happens with it. So I can't even remember what the question was. So that tends to happen quite often. The question was about when you've got like-minded people together, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what in that instance, what you need to do is when you're recruiting somebody, you need to understand that that's our weakness, that we're very creative, but we've not got someone that actually holds us to account to make sure that those ideas we come up with, we actually do something with. So in that instance, you need someone that has the motivation, a bit like the defender motivator, to get things done, knuckle down, do the detail, make sure that things are finished off. And again, creative tend to be the starters and not the finishers.
Now, you can see, obviously I was laughing because unfortunately I take after my father, and we share an office together, working together. And if you read our Facebook messages back and forward, we're both really guilty of that, because it'll pop up and it'll go, he's typing, it'll go idea 492/C79, and I'll go, how about? And we've got post-it notes in the office of things that, we'll get around to that. And I've known you a while. I'm really guilty of that. And we need somebody to go, look, And I think this sort of situation's taught me that there's you've got to bloody do something with them, Paul. Hence setting this up. let's just get it done, and not perfect, and let's just see what's happened and evolved it, you know.
Yeah, so it's about time you did something that actually came to something useful. No, I didn't mean that. No, I mean, it's the same as with any creative people that you work with. They just you need to sort of just make sure that they understand why you need it.
Yeah.
Understanding, you know, we've just done some great work on my website, and it's understanding where that fits into the whole, you know, the whole picture, really, because obviously creative is only one part of it. What you've got to do then is think about, you know, monetizing and making sure that's happening as well. You know, and that's the trick. You know, the trouble with business owners, if you just think about people that go into business, again, going back to motivations, most people go into business on their own because they want freedom.
Yeah.
And they want control over the way they do things, because they don't want to be told what to do, and they've got all this. They want to make a difference, and you know, they want to be creative, and they want to, you know, the freedom to do things the way they want to do them. But that does not lead to a business, because ultimately you need to make sure that you have an income stream, that you actually create things that actually people want to buy. And also you need to make sure that certain things are delegated out, to make sure that people are clear about who's doing what. That tends to be not something that tends to happen. So it does all come back to motivation, because if you think about what motivation is, it's the motive to take action. The stronger the motive, the more likely we are to take action. Yeah. So if that's going on and we've got no one telling us, that's the thing. When we're on our own, there's nobody really telling us, unless we join an accountability group, which is where we met, ironically.
Yeah.
It's making sure that people are telling you, oh, you said you were going to do that, but you come to this meeting and you haven't done it. Why? And then you have to have that, because they then start questioning, okay, so why haven't you done it? Is it because you couldn't do it? Is it because you know, you got distracted? So you know, that's the thing. You've got to make sure that the things that you have gone into business for are being met, one thing, but also you've got to be aware of your Achilles heels, which ultimately will hold you back if you don't take some action around them.
That's obviously that's some really good points, and I think a lot of people watching will be resonating with that. I know that I am, and you know, because we are all guilty of it. And I said, like you said, a lot of people go because they've got that freedom. So when I started my business, I was in a kind of leadership role, but a not defined role, and certainly not paid for that role that I was doing. So I was kind of very annoyed that I was kind of, and ideas I had were almost, I always describe myself as a jack in a box with the lid shut, you know, stapled down, you know, because I had all these ideas and there was no outlet for it. So when I decided to go, you know, self-employed, it was just like, this and this and this. And because my motivation was unlocked, the freedom you mentioned to go and do all these things. And I kind of didn't have a plan, and I kind of just sort of, let's see where this goes. Never thought I'd be setting up a networking group. I'd never even been networking when I didn't even know what it was. I thought it was wires and cables and stuff. No idea. And then 8 months later, set up a group. And so I know, and I suppose a lot of people watching this will know that, not like you said, having somebody that's different to yourself that's going to say, wait a minute, you said this. And when I've got a similar personality to my father that's the same, it's easier in some ways, because we've got to have defined roles. We know that, hey, can you do this? Well, I do that. And then it's kind of like, well, I've done my bit. Why have you not done yours? So I can certainly see that area, how that would work. In terms of, so the businesses that you work with, is it what sort of sizes? Are you working with somebody that's just their own business, self-employed, or bigger firms, or where, you know, how does it go?
It tends to be that there's more than one person. I don't tend to work with people that've just got one person, you know, because there's not much I can, not as much as I can offer there. And basically that would be business coaching, which is interesting, because I don't call myself a business coach, or some people refer to me as a business coach. And I suppose part of what, you know, a big part of what I do is very much business orientated. but the reason why I do what I do is because I do something that lights me up. I want to do the people side. I don't want to sit down and do strategies and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's not about whether I can do it. I can do it. I've done it. I did it for 30 years. I know I can do it. But the thing is, I'm avoiding doing it because I don't want to get stuck, go down that path of doing something just because I can do it. I want to do something that I can really make a difference by, and something that I'm really passionate about. So I don't tend to work with individual on their own. I tend to start with couples. Now, they're a great place to start when you're working with two people, getting them to understand their motivations, understanding where their motivations are in line, and then understanding where their weaknesses are as a team. Because as soon as you get two people together, they're a team, you know. And then you've got to think about who's going to do the things that neither of you want to do, and that's a key role I see in that. You know, when you get an advice, okay, where's our weaknesses? What's going to hold us back? And those motivations are going to be the things that will hold you back, because you won't do them because you want to do them. Yeah. Motivation is about doing things that you want to do. So I do some work with couples, and then and then anything from up to, I mean, my biggest client is about 47 employees. So it all depends on what I'm doing. So but the client I work with, the 47 employees, is very much around helping them understand what are the motivations for their, in this case, did some work with their sales team. So they've had lots of training around sales, about how to sell, all those skills. Yeah. So they know how to do it. What we were looking at is what is going to motivate them to actually put those skills into practice again. So it's the very same principle as someone working on their own, understanding to get the skills is one thing, but actually making sure that you're doing the things that you want to do in that context. So we were looking at what were the key motivations and how you can get more from their team. And what we found out in that instance was that firstly, they were motivated by making a difference. So the management team then knew that they had to give plenty of good quality feedback. Secondly, that they were motivated by security. So that was all about information. Right. And thirdly, it's about being about expertise. And so training was a good thing. But what we also found out was that out of all the 9 motivators, the expert motivator was the one that's being fulfilled the best. So the feedback to the management is that looks like you're giving plenty of opportunities to learn and knowledge, and being a specialist within an organization is well met, and it's one of your key drivers in your team. So that's good. But as a management team, to get the best out of this group of people, give them lots of information and make sure you give them plenty of feedback. So there's a wide variety of businesses, but essentially what I'm doing is talking about motivation and then teaching the leadership skills that I mentioned earlier.
Brilliant. And I said, you say it's any team. It's about people and relationships and how they, perform to their best, isn't it? If they're motivated, and they're going to perform, they're going to grow the business. I wanted to mention the podcast that you worked on. I'd love you to mention a little bit about that, because that's really taken off, hasn't it?
It has. I mean, I think it's worth telling the story of that. I mean, I came down to see you, didn't I? I said to you, I think I need to come down and we need to do a bit of brainstorming around content. At that stage, we had not even talked about a podcast. But come out of that sort of 2 or 3 hours we spent together just mulling stuff over and different ideas, we came around. Firstly, we talked about the reluctant leader sort of idea, and that's where it was born. And then the first thing we decided to do, which again, it was obviously sounded like a good idea. It was a good way of creating some content which sort of backed up what I did. But the most important thing, I knew it was the right thing to do because it actually fulfilled my key motivators. So making a difference, doing something creative that brings new ideas into being, which obviously it does, and showing expertise, which is a key driver of mine. So when you look at something you're going to do, if you think, hang on a minute, is this actually long-term going to actually be something I want to do? Yeah. Yes, because it fulfills those motivators. So that started I don't know, about 18 months ago. There's 48 episodes, four series of 12, 5,500 downloads, something like that. Series 5 is in production. Sounds grand, but basically I've recorded 4, and I've got my production guy that does them. He emailed to say he's a bit ill at the moment. Hopefully he hasn't got COVID, but so that's sort of on hold for the production. But so that has been a great project. And sometimes you have an idea, you don't know quite where it's going to take you, but you just know that it's something that's right, and it's also, you know, it's going to bring some good to the world in some way.
Yeah.
And marketing wise, it's a great tool, and it's worked. Well, it worked for me, and it's also worked for my guests. In that I know people that have come on, have told me that they listen to podcasts, and so and so is now working with me. So that's a great thing. I love that.
Excellent. I mean, that's part of the reason I was inspired was how your podcast has developed, and you know, that it does tick those motivators for me of introducing, helping people, you know, sharing ideas at a time when people, you know, are not sure what the next step is. Because I guess a lot of people are maybe thinking that if they've got downtime, are they actually meeting? Are they actually happy? What can they do? The next stage for the future? You know, do they want to do something different? They maybe picked up some new skills like I have. But I mean, we've had loads of good ideas that I've been speaking to my father about where we want to go and how we map that out and stick to that timeline now, because this for us has been a good opportunity. And I think, you know, with say your podcast and being able to have something that adds value, but also the expertise, I think has been. And where's that time gone? Seasons 5 or series 5 nearly.
Yeah, I know. But going back, you know, to the opportunities we got now, is that when are we ever going to get an opportunity like this again? Now, putting aside, you know, obviously this has come, you know, for some businesses, and I know that's going to be really, they didn't want this to happen financially and all the other stuff that was going on. It's obviously a big concern. But just to put that to one side, we probably will never have an opportunity like this again. To basically everything stopped. I mean, the aircraft have stopped flying, and you know, all these things have stopped, and this has allowed us to think, right, what do we want to keep? What do you want to change? How can we come out of this with a better, you know, vision of the world that we want to create? Because there's no government in the world would ever have signed up to this.
No,
you know, they wouldn't. Nobody in the world would have signed up to this. But actually, now it's happening. You think, right, okay, we're in it. We've got to get through it. What comes out the other end is very much dependent on us. What we decide to do, we have a certain amount of control on how we deal with it. We can make our own decisions. Yes, we're at the mercy of certain people, you know, the government and all those sort of things, but not everything's down to them. We can do things ourselves. So what does this allow each one of us to do that we would never have been able to do if this hadn't happened? And just by having this almost like stop, think about it, and start again scenario can really be the catalyst for massive change, which could really change the world, I think.
Absolutely, and I think it's taken those positives out of something so horrific that's happened, and we've all been through emotions of absolutely terrified, to uncertainty and worry, but then you kind of find your new normal, that we've had to all find a way of, you know, with our businesses looking out for each other, but those opportunities there to do different things. And I was speaking to one of the guests the other day about they've got a business and there's 300 staff, you know, and it's almost like a forced beta test, you know. Oh, we'd love to be able to just see how it works. Now, you can't do that in the real world. You can't just go, let's just give it a go, because it would seriously impact the business if they just tried something, you know. Obviously they could phase it and do it in phases, but to be able to sort of go, right, this has happened, let's down tools, let's try this. And speaking to them, it's been great. And in terms of the motivators, is maybe it's going to hit more of those people to fulfill more of their needs, having that flexibility with the work-life balance. People have got the school run, exercising, you know, obviously the face-to-face is really important, but it is going to shift. And I'll be interested to see the teams that you work with, how this has impacted those people in terms of fulfilling those needs, I think it could be quite exciting.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I've got a friend who's high up in the police, and he's, you know, working from home, and he said, "There's no way we're going to just drop what we've learned from, you know, video conferencing." He says, "I'm far more productive. I haven't got to worry about driving to work, parking, all that jazz that takes up time. You know, we'd be foolish just to say, oh, right, that's it. We're back to normal now. Forget all that." That's never going to happen. It's just not. And whatever barriers there were for embracing video conferencing in the past, those people that said, "Oh no, I don't like that," or you know, some sort of barrier, can't really now say, "Oh, I can't do it anymore," because they've had to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and we are creatures of habit. Once you get into a habit and you've got over that hurdle of doing something, you just then, oh, okay, it's not so bad after all. It's very much like public speaking. You know, people talk about public speakers as near to death experience, as almost as bad as dying. But actually, you and I know that, you know, the first time is like that, and you think, oh my God, I could die. And the first time you speak in front of a group of people, you know, the sleepless nights and all that stress, you think, is it really worth it? It's only when you've done it, you know, maybe 6 or 10 times, you then realize, what exactly was I worried about? Because, you know, it's only the worry about something that I've not done before. Everything else is just a learning process. And I talk a lot about mindset, and I talked about the mindset of leadership, but our general mindset has to be of growth mindset. And if you're in growth mindset, you just then accept that everything is a learning process, and you're not here to be brilliant at everything the first time you do it.
No.
You know? And you know, the best sportsmen in the world, you know, they're not brilliant because they were given a gift. There is a certain amount of obviously natural gift, but, you know, are we saying that all the best sportsmen are always the ones that are most gifted? No, it's not. It's the ones that have a gift and then they develop it and they keep developing it and keep developing it. So if you go in that mindset that I'm always growing and that things that go wrong are just that, they just went wrong, it doesn't mean I can't do it forever. Staying in that mindset of growth, then you will ultimately achieve more.
Brilliant. And I think I felt that where there was a tipping point for me when it went from, you know, I was a kid at school that didn't sleep. I worried about a year in advance. My mum used to worry us to ask all this stuff, you know, worry about it. It was a year's time, anxiety about different things. And I think the freedom to go off and do things and try things. And is it Richard Branson that said, say yes to things and worry about it later? Done a lot of that. And there was a tipping point where I remember I was speaking at an event, and I was speaking to, I think, nearly 200 people, which is the most I've spoken to. And it went from, I was nervous, but it was the nervous excitement of really excited to do it. And it was being filmed live on Facebook. And they told me that just before. But I remember feeling like, if it goes wrong, it doesn't matter, because that's part of the excitement of it, the buzz. Whereas before, it was just terrifying. You know, and you think, people that do things and try new things and learn new things, and some of the clients I've spoken to are like, you've got to embrace technology, you know, and they're terrified. I'm like, just go on Zoom, have a little look around it, find out what each of the buttons do, and then we'll do a one-to-one and we'll chat. And then I want, you know, in 6 months' time, there's no way you can't be delivering something online. Oh no, I could do that. You can, you absolutely can. You know, I've not used this recently. You're much more savvy with this kind of thing than me, and I think, you know, you're along with the podcast, you've got courses you're working on now. I wanted to mention them on the course you're putting online, which I can share in the details below this video, and the podcast and the courses you're doing. And but yeah, it's very much opened our eyes to lots of things, and it is picking those positives out of what's been
I've just bought a bit of new kit actually. I'm basically on courses. I've just bought my first DLSR camera.
Oh, nice.
Now, if you'd have told me a few months ago you're going to buy a DLSR camera which you're going to use for recording courses, I would have said no. I'm not. I've got no interest in buying a camera. But now all of a sudden I think actually I want to do good content, and get a good quality of product. So the only way to do that is get a good camera. So it's hooked up to this computer. I've only just got it as a new toy, so I'm playing around with it. So so once I've got that hooked up, then I'll be playing around with that. So.
That's exactly. I'm a little bit behind you. We'd start to look at kit that we want to get, and the inbuilt camera here isn't great. I need a good mic, So it's and doing a quiz as well, and it's a bit difficult when you've got the mic here and that. So I'm like, been looking on different sites and looking at different kit, and
Well, that's the other thing I got. The other bit of kit is my mic for recording my my podcast, which is just that of shot. It does make me laugh when you see people that got all this kit and it's like taking up half the shot, and you think, well, why can't they just put it out of the way? It doesn't change much.
Well, on the YouTube,
but some people they just want to show off their kit, don't they?
I saw the YouTubers. Hey guys, check in, subscribe.
Yeah. It's quite comical, really. You got to laugh at people. And that's I think that's the thing that we've got to remember is that through all this troubles and strife that we're going through at the moment, you've got to first of all not take yourself too seriously. And I think going back to when we think about public speaking and doing anything like this, it's only because we take ourselves too seriously and people think people are going to judge us. It doesn't matter what you do; people will judge you. Whatever you decide to do or don't do, people will judge you. So you might as well just be yourself. And most people are actually attracted to people that are just themselves. And people can detect a mile off when you're trying to be something you're not. And I don't need to tell you that, because you're very much in that ilk that you are who you are, and take me as you find me, and that's the best way to be, I think.
Yeah, and I think I always loved the Theodore Roosevelt president and comparison to the thief of joy. And that for me has always been like, very early on, I did looked up graphic designers and how should you conform. And they all said the same things on their websites. We're a, synergy, fluid, creative. And you're like, well, you kind of hope you're creative because that's what you do, There's no substance of what you're about. Yeah. And some of the stuff I put on my Facebook page would probably put off loads of people, but you say it's authentic, it's you, it's warts and all, this is me. And
the thing to remember, I was on a call with a marketing call with a group that was just talking about marketing, and the lady that was running it, Bryony Thomas, she was just talking about marketing is for two things. It's attracting people that you want to work with and repelling them that you don't. So when you're authentic, you're doing two things. You're obviously attracting people that like you and want to work with you for that reason. And you're also putting off people that don't sort of get you. So that's the two purposes you've got to remember. And if you think to yourself, I'm trying to attract a certain person and they're not coming to me, then that's probably fine, because they'd probably never get you anyway, and they'll probably be really difficult to work with.
Yeah, that's very true. Well, that's a great sort of point to end on. It's been really lovely chatting to you, catching up, and chatting about motivation. And there's lots of people that can take a step back now and think about some of those ideas. Before I go, I'm going to ask you my killer question, which I've asked most people. So if you didn't help people with their motivations and reluctant leaders to grow and move forward, what would you do? What would you do instead? Or what were you told at school you might be when you grow up?
Okay, I can't remember what I was told at school because it was far too long ago. I'm not as young as you. What I was at school was I was quite good with numbers, so I was going down the accountancy, that sort of banking route, because we had less options in those days. If I had a choice to do something these days, it's would I get into marketing in some way? Because I once you embrace it and understand what marketing is, I think it's a great place and obviously very creative area, and actually you can have some great fun. And what we've been talking about today is very much about motivation, but actually, if you think about what motivates people to take action, it's because they see something and they're inspired to do something. And that's what marketing is. That we get influenced by things in a good way, and then we go on that journey because of what we've seen, and that's what marketing should be about. It's not about just trying to make people buy things that they don't want. It should be about just inspiring people to do the right things. And I think and marketing and leadership are very much in line, in that ultimately those two things are about influencing people to do things that they really want to do anyway, and it's just giving them a bit of access and leading them in the right direction.
Yeah, and I guess sort of Apple are a great example of that tribe and attracting those people that love not just the actual physical product, but the whole thought process, and the way that Apple do things is very much an Apple fan club, isn't it? So if you like your Apple kit.
Well, the thing is, we buy into a culture, don't we?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. When you see something that actually it's a culture that's in line with your values, motivation is very much in line with values, then that resonates with you and you want to be part of it. And that's why you buy into it. That's the thing to remember. You've got something that actually sort of gets you here.
Yeah.
And you're more likely to stick with it through thick and thin. And actually, it feels good when you buy something from those sort of companies.
I think the best example that I see, I can't remember the video, was for Harley Davidson back in the 70s or 80s. And it's not really about the product, it's about the drive. I think it's called The Drive, but it's just about being part of what the Harley Davidson people are about. It's about the identity and the friendship and the open road. But it just happens to be a bike. It could be whatever. Yeah, that's quite a good video. But it's been great chatting to you. We can catch up again on these marketing ideas forever, can't we? We love talking about it.
Yeah. It's been great. Really enjoyed it. Yeah, good chat. Yeah.
I finally got there to doing some videos. So,
good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll look forward to catch up with you very soon, Mark.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Paul. Yeah, look forward to it too.
Take care. Okay, bye.
Yeah, bye.